Leoma, call 1-800-COMPLEX. Goldberg, Persky, and White. Truly working lawyers for working people.
Local news, local topics, local conversation. You're listening to AM Beaver County on 95.7 FM, 99.3 FM, 1230 WBVP, and 1460 WMBA. Presented by St. Barnabas and streaming live at beavercountyradio.com.
And we're back on AM Beaver County on this Wednesday morning, and we're also on Facebook Live now as well, as we welcome back Rochester Mayor Keith Jackson to the studio. Mayor, good morning to you.
Good morning, Beaver County.
So today I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the things going on, because as we saw yesterday, the weather's starting to get nice, and it feels like, it's slowly getting into summer event season, for lack of a better term. And as we talked about before, you've been in Rochester for nearly 7 decades now, 69 years. So let's go back to those days, back, when Mayor Keith Jackson was young Keith Jackson. Mm-hmm. What were some of the events that took place in Rochester that you remember most fondly growing up?
When I was younger, I thought we was one of the richest kids in Beaver County. We had everything. We had swimming pools, basketball courts, playgrounds, every recreational program that was available at that time. Skating rinks was available at that time. A lot of things that we've done, we created. Baseball early in the mornings, basketball early in the mornings. These are the things that we was brought up to do.
And, of course, that was just the thing of being a kid. You were able to, go out there and go outside and have a good time and spend, summer days from dawn to dusk just hanging out with your friends.
Correct.
So now it's 2022, and things are, for all intents and purposes, a little different than they were back in the day. And a lot of the amenities that you mentioned there, skating rinks, swimming pools, are not a part of Rochester anymore, at least not in the grand scheme of things. Mm-hmm. So what would you say has been the biggest push to have that happen for those places to go away, and what would be the biggest push for them to possibly come back?
I think it would be nice for them to bring recreation back a little bit more than what they have. You have these seniors, they have senior projects. I think at that time, the little grant monies, if you apply for them, that comes through, you can give these seniors jobs during the summer working these playgrounds. That's a senior project for them. You're also teaching them how to communicate with people, all people. You're teaching them how to train kids to be young adults. That's important to me today.
Yes, and on top of that, it creates that connection, because a lot of times the reason that communities tend not to, come together as much is simply because they just don't come together. You don't have opportunities for older adults and younger adults to, have that sort of, bond where, they can come together and say, I'm helping you out doing this and you're helping me out doing this. And, you're going through the same experiences I did when I was a kid. There's really not that connection now these days.
What I have noticed, and I've been paying attention to, a lot of family members, adults, their kids are all grown up and gone. They don't think about the neighbor's kids, your kids. All they thought about was what they were able to get for their kids. When their kids, and when we was young, our parents made sure that our communities had things for the kids to do. We're lacking that today. We need to bring that back. We are the reasons why these kids are the way they are today. You have to step up and find something for these kids to do, like our parents found something for us to do when we were coming along.
And you feel that there is not, at least from a a parental perspective or from a local government perspective, a lot of push for that to be done, a lot of push for these kids to have something to do. You don't see that.
No, what I don't see today that I was able to see when we was coming along. We were fortunate enough to have both parents.
Mm.
Today, these kids are coming from broken homes. Some of them have a father. They have a mother, but one of them is either on drugs, the other is incarcerated. To me, as an adult, I feel that's where we come in as a community to reach out and help these kids, where we can be the mentor for these kids in our own community. If you take time out and stop and talk to these kids, you can see when these kids have a look on their face when something's wrong. You've been out here long enough. You're supposed to be smart. Be able to attack these issues when you see something wrong with these kids. Try to find out what's wrong with them. Take time out and talk to these kids, and they'll tell you everything you want to know.
And in a sense, too, it's a more economical process to do it that way, because if there are a lot of kids that are sort of, lacking that guidance figure, obviously it'd be one thing to simply be their parent, which is, a tough enough job.
Mm-hmm.
But when you bring a community together, then all of a sudden you have, the council members, you have the neighbors in those communities, those are willing to help out. And all of a sudden, instead of, one person taking care of a kid or a multitude of kids, now you have all these different hands that are in the pot saying, we'll help you out here. We'll give you something to do and try to keep you out of trouble.
I consider that as being a family. When you learn how to bring yourselves together in unity.
Right.
We need each other. Whether you want to accept it or not, reality is going to hit sooner or later. And you're going to see that we need each other. You have to start helping each other out here.
And on top of that, too, it's not just a matter of all these different amenities. I mean, because, again, the personal side of it is one thing, as we're talking about. But the other side of it, too, is simply, those places like the swimming pools and the skating rinks aren't necessarily there. And the one thing that Rochester does have, or at least in a sense they do have, is the connection that they have, especially in the summertime, to a place like the Beaver River or the Ohio River.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen activities from other communities, that happen, once or twice a year. Do you think that is being taken advantage of enough where, citizens could go down to the river and just sort of, be, citizens and just have a good time, sort of like a community type area? Or do you think that there could be more done with that?
Well, at this point in time, no one can get down there. They're doing construction down there. And it's hard for anyone to get down there. It would be unsafe, for anyone to be down there at this point in time. I feel that riverfront eventually can come back. That's an area where everyone goes. Fishing, picnics, just to get away, to sit down there. Go down there to meet people, to sit and communicate and talk.
Right.
That's what parks are for.
Yes, and like you said, and it's a good point that, with construction going on down there now, it may not be the best idea to gather there now. But once all that is, theoretically, once all that is taken care of and the places are revitalized, then you could start seeing, more down there. And do you see a potential there for the community to host events down there in order to sort of push that idea along?
I can see it happening, but we have to get some grants in order to bring monies into our communities. There has to be some grants written. I don't know if anyone are writing any grants. When I asked about grants, yes, they're writing, but I don't see anything that's bringing any grant monies in.
Right, and that always plays a role in any type of government, whether you're talking about simply getting something for the kids or getting a new building for seniors or anything else along those lines. We're talking with Rochester Mayor Keith Jackson about some of the summer events that are and possibly could be down the line taking place in the area. We'll continue that conversation on the other side of this break here on AM Beaver County.
The Beaver County Conservation District is seeking donations to support their environmental education offerings for students and families here in Beaver County. The annual Envirothon, scheduled for April the 13th, is an event where junior and senior high school students test their knowledge of environmental topics, including aquatic ecology, soils and land use, forestry, wildlife, and current issue. The local Envirothon reaches over 150 students each and every year here in Beaver County. High school winners of the county competition can move on to the state competition, and winners of the state competition can move on to the international competition. Your generous donation would go towards supplying t-shirts to all the students, medals, food, updated study materials, including environmental study kits, as well as the many other costs associated with hosting the county-level event. Contact the Beaver County Conservation District online or at 724-378-1701 to donate today.
It's time to wake up, Beaver Valley. Hi, this is Pastor David Grove from the Church of the Redeemed of Beaver Valley. That's right, you'd better wake up a little earlier. This and every Saturday beginning at 7 a.m. Tune in to my new enlightening and spiritually challenging talk show called Wake Up, Beaver Valley. I do believe it is time to wake up and to turn our hearts back to the cross of Jesus Christ. So I invite you to wake up early this Saturday to find out more. It's Wake Up, Beaver Valley, Saturdays from 7 until 8 a.m. on WBVP and WMBA and the new 99.3 FM.
The views and opinions expressed on WBVP and WMBA are those of the participants and hosts. They are not necessarily the viewpoint of WBVP and WMBA, its staff, management, and advertisers. Thank you for listening to WBVP and WMBA.
And we're back here on AM Beaver County on this Wednesday morning. And we're also on Facebook Live as well, as we're talking with Rochester Mayor Keith Jackson about the summers in Rochester, what is, what could be, and everything in between. And Mayor, we were talking the last segment about, going down to the river and going down to, whatever area is going to be down there once construction's over. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that, again, could be within the confines of, the community of Rochester, putting on events and stuff like that. And, we've talked in other segments on AM Beaver County before about boroughs or townships that have, sort of subcommittees. Because obviously you do have your higher positions like city council and mayors like yourself. But at the same time, there's also these other groups that, may help to, gather things together, like sort of advocacy groups, this group does things to help clean up the city, or this group does things to help projects for the kids. Are there any programs like that in Rochester?
Yes, they do have. Occasionally, there's a group of people that goes down to the riverfront. And one gentleman that I do have to speak on, which would be Howdy Howe. He was on council. He was a police officer, and he still lives in Rochester. And that was one of his projects, was that riverfront. And he took a lot of pride about cleaning down there. So once or twice a year, they would go down there, him with a group of people, and they would go down there and clean up down at the riverfront.
Now, and does that still go on, or is that sort of gone away in years past and something you'd like to see come back?
It's still going on.
Okay.
But I, like I said, at this point in time, there's a lot of construction going on down there, and it's really not safe to be down there while they're doing a lot of construction.
So there is that, and then of course there's other programs that may do little things here and there. But a lot of times we've been talking about doing things for the community, bringing the community together for these kids that may not have any guidance or direction. Is there any program like that in Rochester? And if there's not, how would you see one coming together?
No, there's no programs like that in Rochester. That's something that, that I've been actually trying to push for 4 or 5 years, trying to find a building in Rochester for these kids. I have had a couple investors from out of town. I'm talking about out of state. I can mention Florida's one of them. Harrisburg was another. And I had some people from out of Philadelphia that wanted to invest some monies in Rochester. But you have to have the buildings and the property. That's where your problem comes in. Which properties are available and which properties aren't available.
And on top of that, I mean, and that's just the building too. I mean,
Mhm.
that's securing the building is one thing. It's like you have a building to do things in, but then you'd have to get the community interest, and that, of
Correct.
course, has been sort of the main topic of the times that we've been talking. Is that there's not a whole lot of connection within the community.
No, it's not. It's no connections at all. It's kind of bad living in a town 69 years and knowing the people that you do know, and you go up and down the streets, which a lot of people have been knowing me for years. I've been talking to people for years and years and years. Since I got in this position, statements have been made. Every time we turn around, you're talking to somebody. Well, if you take time out and talk with your senior citizens in your community and talk with your kids in your communities, they'll tell you exactly what's going on and the things that they do need. That's why I try to tell our council, stop thinking inside the little box. Start thinking outside the box. Outside the box means everyone in that community, not what goes on within that council room.
Right, because what a council decides, and what the members of a council thinks, and what the community thinks, regardless of the situation in any community, are usually going to be different, because the wants of 7 or 8 people compared to that of however many there are in Rochester, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. I'm not sure what the exact number is, but again, there's usually a strong difference between them. And if there was some sort of, connection or some sort of gathering that said, okay, what does everybody think? What does everybody want to see? Then there may be some steps forward.
Well, when they used to have those car shows, that brought a lot of people together, not just from Rochester, from all over Beaver County. That's something that needs to come back to Rochester. Will it ever happen? I really couldn't tell you at this point in time.
Because I was gonna ask, how long has it been since there has been a show like that in Rochester?
To my knowledge, I have to say, and don't hold me to this, maybe 4 years, maybe 5 years.
Oh, okay, so it's been a few years, but it hasn't been anything. It's not been like 20 years or something like that.
No,
okay, but still, at the same time, if and especially something like that where a lot of people that are there right now remember that and they say, "Oh, that was enjoyable." Well, why not, try to push to bring something like that back?
That's up to the people. This is the reason why I try to explain to a lot of people. Start speaking up. You see the things that used to be. If you don't ask for something, how are you supposed to get it? You have to ask for it. And if you're not getting the answer that you want, then you go get a couple more people. Explain the situation, what you're trying to do. And it's not just for you, it's for everyone. So if it pertains to everyone, at least try to do something to make something happen.
Right. If it's something for everyone and you don't ask anyone, then it's never going to come to fruition.
It's never going to come.
Right. That's exactly it. And so that is why, we see, the struggles that we do. And I sincerely hope that, events like you're talking about, people going down the river, car shows or whatever the case may be, they do come back to Rochester, because I mean, from a geographical and sort of, overall standpoint, it's a beautiful place. But if it's a beautiful place that nobody's doing anything in, then, that's really not a whole lot going on. But, Mayor, I do thank you once again for coming by and talking about this. And, of course, you can hear Mayor Jackson on the second Wednesday of every month here at 8:30 on AM Beaver County, as we'll talk about the things going on in Rochester and the latest developments and the connection or to-be connection in dealings with the council and the citizens of Rochester. Mayor Jackson, thank you once again for coming by.
And thanks for having me here.
Absolutely, absolutely. Coming up next here on Beaver County Radio, it is another edition of Teleforum, and it'll start with Garden Jargon. The brand new show coming up in the next hour here on Beaver County Radio.
It's always the right time to shop the Hopewell Shopping Center, no matter what the season, no matter what the